I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, Brunning, Bruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box. And you cannot compare them at all, so don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table, come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable Podcast. It is Tuesday, week 3 of the NFL season is in the books. And if you see that rosy glow from Dennis, it's because Monday Night Football broke his way, my way too. I may have picked the Ravens, but I definitely wanted the Lions, and they pulled off a 38-30 victory. So I'm actually going to start at the end of the week as we recap. But Dennis, how did it feel? Are you feeling, the Lions did not have a great week 1, but they beat the crap out of the Bears in week 2. It was hard to say, what that means. But I think putting up 38 points and getting a win in Baltimore is pretty good. Are you feeling better about the Lions this week?
I think you have to. I mean, they have the 8th-ranked passing offense and the 4th-ranked rushing offense, and the defense is playing in the top half as well. I think they're 11th against the run and like 16th or 15th against the pass. So they got to Lamar last night. Would they get him 6 times?
Yeah, and he looked uncomfortable almost every time he dropped back there at the end.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Derrick Henry couldn't get enough volume to get anything going.
And later on the
touchdown, 50 yards, but
third time in 3 games. That's a grim.
That's very bad. The Lions, they did what they should. Amon-Ra led the way with targets, 77 and a touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 5 receptions, 32 yards. He wasn't super efficient on the ground, but he did have 67 yards on 22 carries. Montgomery broke the long one, and what do I always say? Montgomery isn't going to turn a 20-yarder into a 70-yarder, but he'll turn a 5-yarder into a 15-yarder. And there were a lot of people catching up to him on that 72-yard run. I mean, I'm sure he was looking back going, man, why couldn't this just have been a 50-yarder?
Oh, and then later he broke one like 30 or 40 yards for the touchdown.
Yeah, so. He had a phenomenal night. 151 on 12 with 2 touchdowns. Jameson Williams looked like he was going to have his traditional 100-yard game on 2 catches, but he only put up 2 for 43, didn't get in the end zone.
Yeah. Meanwhile, for the Ravens, Mark Andrews had 2 receptions for 7 yards total, despite his team scoring 81 points in the first 2 weeks. All of us decided to sit him, so naturally, 6 receptions for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. In this one, do you feel like Andrews righted the ship, or are you still a little cautious?
So he scored a combined 2.9 points in weeks 1 and 2. And then put up 187 points in week 3. I kid. It wasn't quite that.
It was 2.7 points combined because it was 1 for 5 and then 1 for 2.
All right. And then but he's tight end 10 on the season after yesterday. So,
well, people haven't played though. Oh wait, no, I guess that was the end. That's so ridiculous.
I got another equally ridiculous point about another player coming up. No, I need to see it be a little more consistent. What did he have? 6 targets. So if he can stay in that 6 target range consistently, then yeah, I'm on board. Is he going to get 91 and 2 every week? Probably not, but that's not what he needs to stay as a top 10 tight end. If he can get,
That's the thing, though. He was like incredibly efficient because he caught all 6 and they were for big gains. He only had 1 target apiece in the first 2 games. It's hard to know if they're going to come to him.
I totally get it, especially with their newfound belief in their receiver core. You know, Bateman had 7 targets, but Flowers 3, Hopkins 2, so 12 out of 27 targets went to their top 3 wide receivers. You know, Kohler did have 3 targets as well. So when Isaiah Likely gets back, I would think he'll be in the mix. Heck, Devontae Walker. I thought for a minute there that maybe the Walker buzz was real, but he only had the 1 catch on the 1 target yesterday.
I think the biggest problem is the Ravens need to fix their defense at some point in time here.
It would seem so. It would seem so.
Well, we will go back. By the way, I'm laying odds that the other stat I'm going to find ridiculous is something about Trey Tucker being wide receiver 3. That's what happens when you've only had a 3-game sample size. If you have one incredible game, you can completely F the overall numbers. Thursday night, the Bills did indeed win 31-21. Ollie Gordon, trolling us, scored the initial touchdown, but only ended up with 9 for 38. We got touchdowns for Hill and Waddle. Tua throwing 2 touchdowns, keeping them in the game for a while seems good, but only 146 passing yards on 34 attempts and had a killer interception. There has been a lot of negativity surrounding him, not only for his NFL play, but for fantasy after the first 3 weeks. How are you feeling about Tua?
Obviously, you want more yardage, and that was a crushing interception, but he did have the 2 touchdown passes. He was fairly efficient, 22 of 34. So he was 68%, 67%. So you like that. The offensive line isn't really very good, and so everything is short and quick. There's not a lot of time to get down the field. And what was it, 2-3 years ago? That's what we loved about that offense. It was quick hitters. Everything was fast and everything was clicking. Well, now we're 3 years in and teams have figured it out. So now they have to figure that the Dolphins have to adjust to the adjustments, and they haven't done that very well. Achane had a pretty efficient game, 12 for 62, and he caught 7 passes for 29 yards. The passes, the targets are going where we want them to. 25 of those 34 attempts went to Hill, Waddle, and Achane. Now, Malik Washington also kicked in 5 targets, but he didn't do a whole heck of a lot with them. I want that. That's what I want. Achane only had 12 carries. He's a 185-pounder. I don't think we're looking for him to have 20 carries a game, but if he can get 9 targets and 12 carries, I think we're going to love that for Achane week after week after week. We just need him to maybe get in the end zone or get some bigger yardage plays. He, caught 7 passes, but only for 29 yards. That's not a great average.
I think the only good thing that happened to the Dolphins this week is Mike McDaniel may not be the coach on the hottest of seats. So
yeah. So no, I like that they're fighting and they're trying to figure it out, and they have a narrow funnel, so that's good. You have to believe they're going to get a little more efficient. Tua's QB 22 on the season, so he's still a viable super flex quarterback. The Bills and the Colts were both top 10 pass defenses, so we'll see what happens going forward. He has to perform well against the teams he should perform well against, and that will make going up against top 10 defenses and maybe being a little more mediocre palatable.
Moving on to the Bills, Dalton Kincaid He's having a solid year. He's had at least 4 receptions and at least 4 targets in each of the first 3 games. He's getting volume. He's doing things with it. 13 for 151 and 2 touchdowns already this season. Is this the breakout that we were hoping for?
So he's more efficient than he has been historically. He's actually averaging a season low, a career low in targets per game at 5.3. Now, that being said, his career high in targets per game was just under 5.8 targets. So he's about a half a target under his career high. You'd like to see him get more targets. You'd like to see them throw the ball 35, 37, 38 times. They threw it 28, which isn't too bad, but James Cook has been very good in the running game. They spread the ball around. What did he have? 10 different receivers with targets, and that seems to be a weekly basis. That makes it hard for somebody to get the 10 target, 12 target games consistently, but it does look like Kincaid is leading the way. He is averaging a career high in yards per game at 50.3, and he's matched his career high in touchdowns, and he did it in only 3 games. So he scored 50% of his career touchdowns coming into week 3. So
moving on to the Sunday games, probably the biggest surprise, the Atlanta Falcons went to Carolina, and I'm not sure they ever showed up. Panthers getting the 30-0 win. Michael Penix looks
no, and it's not like it's that far away either.
Michael Penix looking so bad, they actually brought Kirk Cousins in. Do you think there's any chance they're giving Cousins a thought here?
I think that, yes, there's a chance they're giving Cousins a thought. But, Penix is a young guy, and he's going to make some mistakes, and he's going to have some rough games. Mooney had 11 targets. London had 8 targets. Pitts and Robinson each with 6. The ball is going where you want it to go. He threw a couple interceptions, didn't have any touchdowns. If they can turn that around a little bit, you don't like 172 yards on 36 attempts. He's QB 27 on the season, so he's not really viable yet as a super flex quarterback. And if we're being honest with ourselves, he wasn't a guy we expected to be towards the top of the league in completion percentage anyways, but you got to be better than 50%. You need to get up. You need to be over 60. The elite ones are at 70 or so, but he needs to be above 60% completions. And that's just not where he was this week. Moving over to the Carolina side, it seems like Ejiro Evero can still coordinate a defense.
Yeah, and that's they had a nice little comeback against the Cardinals in week 2 that got that game close. 30-0, their defense, I think, really did it for him, because if you look at the offensive numbers, it's hard to get too excited. Chuba Hubbard, 73 yards on 17 carries. Dowdle vultures a touchdown. Bryce Young vultures a touchdown. He only threw for 121 yards and no touchdowns. Nobody really had a spectacular game. I think Carolina might be a little better than we were giving them credit for, but this was not like to me, a statement 30-0 win.
Yeah, teams have to learn how to win. Carolina needed to learn how to win ugly games. Now, I think because of the turnovers, they were able to make this game a little bit wider than it probably felt. But you're right. They didn't put up a ton. What they have 111 yards, 110 yards rushing, and 121 yards passing. It isn't like they were the Detroit Lions out there. But McMillan, 8 targets. Hunter Renfrow had 4. Hubbard had 3. But they still threw the ball to 9 different receivers. Maybe getting Jalen Coker back here soon will help. Feels like Xavier Legette, when Coker comes back, Renfrow may keep his spot, and it'll be Legette that doesn't come back.
Moving on, one of the other big surprises, the Cleveland Browns getting the 13-10 home win over the Packers. The Packers came in, a lot of people were talking, are they a Super Bowl front runner? But only 10 points there in Cleveland. They've won pretty easily thanks to some defense the first couple of weeks, but Josh Jacobs only averaging 60 yards a game on the ground through 3 weeks. Jordan Love only averaging a little over 200 yards a game passing. They have some injuries. Is this offense actually really good?
It's really mid right now. I want it to be good, but nobody has established themselves at wide receiver. Romeo Doubs is probably the best wide receiver right now. Golden is a rookie, and I think he'll be fine. Watson's injured. Reed is injured. Dontavian Wicks, he's the wide receiver 103. Dobbs is wide receiver 112. Golden, let's see. No, these are target numbers, actually. I take that back. Wicks is 103rd in targets. Dobbs is 112th in targets. And Golden is 127th in targets.
Because they don't throw the ball that much.
Right. And so it's hard to have great fantasy production unless you're super efficient. And they haven't been that yet. And let's be real. Cleveland's defense is the shit.
Yeah, they did pretty well. You know what else was great for them? Quinshon Judkins, in only his second week, seems to have eliminated the running back by committee. 18 carries, 94 yards, and a touchdown. Also had a reception. How do you like him as their lead back?
So the rest of the team, he's got 155 yards. The rest of the team has 105. And he only played 27% of the snaps in week 2, didn't play in week 1 at all. It seems pretty clear that this running game is going to go as Quinshon Judkins goes. He had 18 out of 19 carries, so he had 20 total opportunities. Ford had 4 targets. So out of, 25 running back opportunities, Judkins had 20 of them. So it's going to come down to, is he able to, is he in football shape enough yet? We'll see how he recovers this week. You want to see a little bit more of him. Njoku, 7 targets, Fannin 4. So they're still trying to feature both tight ends. Tillman had 3. Judy had 5. They didn't at 142 yards on 36 targets. They're not Flacco doesn't have the arm strength he used to have. He's not pushing the ball downfield. I think it was good for them to get a win. They're going to ride the defense as far as they go. So they're not making the playoffs, I don't expect. But I do feel like a couple, 1 to 2 more anemic weeks like this, and we will see Dillon Gabriel.
The Indianapolis Colts went to Tennessee at the 41-20 victory. The Colts, 3-0. Their offense has been darn near perfect, only 1 punt in 3 weeks. Their defense looking opportunistic. Could they be a legitimate playoff contender?
I think right now, with Houston crapping the bed the way they are and the inconsistency in Jacksonville, we've watched Daniel Jones play for 7 years now, 8 years now. We're just waiting for the meltdown. But how will he bounce back?
He didn't melt down that year that the Giants went to the playoffs. Having seen how every single person looks horrendous with the Giants and looks freed when they leave the Giants, I'm actually wondering if the problem is Brian Daboll.
It very well could be. Very well could be. We have to be careful because Jones can be turnover happy. But when you have Jonathan Taylor as your running back, that will take a lot of pressure off Daniel Jones. Now, Jones is also running the ball decently, 4 for 27 in this game. He did have 228 yards on 25 pass attempts. That's good. Alec Pierce has been, their deep threat and playing great. He's in concussion protocol right now. Michael Pittman, 6 for 6, 73 and a touchdown. You love to see that. He's that intermediate big jump ball guy, and he does have decent speed. If anything, it's been disappointing that Josh Downs hasn't done better. I think Tyler Warren is, by and large, meeting expectations at the tight end position. He's already
eating into Downs.
Yeah, he's already better than the tight end position in Indianapolis for the last half decade.
Meanwhile, the Titans 0-3. A lot of reports from the opposing team this week that the Titans did not even look like they were ready to play in warmups. Brian Callahan gave up play calling duties going forward today. Could he be on the hot seat?
I think you're an NFL coach. It's rare that your seat doesn't have a little heat under it. But he is playing a rookie quarterback, and maybe giving up play calling will have some benefit. They haven't had their second running back. Pollard's been good, but I think having Tyjae Spears and the explosiveness he brings to provide a little bit of change of pace will be helpful. Elike Omenor has been a pleasant surprise as far as I'm concerned. I didn't have great expectations, but I think he's living up to the receiver that schooled Travis Hunter more so than the guy who didn't do a whole lot the rest of his career. But Calvin Ridley, one catch on 7 targets. I will say this about Ward. So he's QB 33, which that's bad. We're no way to sugarcoat it. He was QB 21 in week 3, and he's gotten better each week. His attempts, his completions, his yardage, his completion percentage have went up every single week. So he's moving in the right direction. The offensive line needs to be better. The whole team has to perform better around him to give him a little bit of grace in his rookie season. He was the number 1 overall pick, and it's easy to say, well, if you're going to be picked there, your job is to come in and elevate the team. But the reality is that there's not a lot of guys that can do that. We've seen, what Troy Aikman do his rookie year? What did Peyton Manning do his rookie year? These quarterbacks come into bad situations, and we all want them to, just, all right, the boat's sailing now. They got a lot of holes to patch. If they were just a quarterback away, they wouldn't have been picking first.
A lot of holes to patch, not just on offense. But a reminder, QB 33 on the season, only 32 teams in the NFL.
That is correct. But
the marquee
last week, which was startable in Superflex.
The marquee matchup of the early window was the Los Angeles Rams at the Philadelphia Eagles. This was a tale of 2 games. The Rams early in the third quarter leading 26-7. The Eagles managing to win 33-26. 2 huge blocked field goals in a row really changed this game and caused the Rams not to cover. What is up with the Rams special teams?
The Eagles figured it out. Now the Eagles, I will say, they have a lot of starters that play on their special teams. It isn't like they're the AYOs, or as Kirk Herbstreit calls them, all you others. Jalen Carter is their starting defensive tackle. Jordan Davis starting. They had a plan. They approached it, and the Rams didn't adjust after the first block. Now, it was wild to watch that big dude get up there. He had 18.59 miles per hour on that touchdown return. So, the Eagles are good and very, very good in all 3 phases of the game. They just don't pass as much as we would like.
Speaking of passing, though, they did have to pass to come back. 226 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. A.J. Brown got going. Devonta Smith got going. They had a big, long one to get Dallas Goedert. I feel better about the Eagles' pass offense after that game. Do you?
Yes and no. So we see it. what we need a team that can score some points playing against the Eagles, that makes the Eagles have to throw the ball. If they don't have to throw the ball, they're perfectly happy to run the ball with Saquon Barkley, with Jalen Hurts, with A.J. Dillon, with Tank Bigsby, hell, with Will Shipley when he gets back. They're perfectly happy to throw the ball 22 times and win, 25-14, 25-13. So if the games can be competitive with some points coming from the other side, then I think, it's going to be good for the passing game. But really, Hurts is the guy you want on this team. He's QB5 for fantasy because of the running.
And Saquon.
Yeah. Well, but even then, Saquon, 46 yards this week, only 9 yards passing. So it wasn't like he was a world beater this week.
The Raiders went into Washington. Commanders getting the 41-24 win with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. For the Raiders, 8 receptions, 145 yards, 3 touchdowns for Trey Tucker. He is currently wide receiver 3 on the year, of course, thanks to that one huge game. But did have 54 yards and a touchdown in week 1, had 3 receptions in week 2. Somebody's got to catch passes for the Raiders. Are you starting to be a believer in Tucker?
Well, Tucker, I show him at wide receiver 4 on Fantasy Pros, but I mean that's splitting here.
Might have gotten passed after last night's game.
Yeah, I'm on Roz at 2.
Yeah, so, I think he was 3 when I was looking yesterday in the morning.
Yeah, and that's why I having a little, now that I go into work earlier and get out a little earlier, I go through and kind of update my rankings as they are. So Trey Tucker, here's that crazy stat I was talking about. After week 2, he was wide receiver 52. And after week 3, he's wide receiver 4. That's a 48 spot jump. Now he put up 40.9 points this week. I'm not sure he puts up 20 in any game going forward. That being said, he's had 17 targets over the last 2 weeks. They trust him now. He's earned the targets. Some of it may be Bowers being banged up a little, Bowers being banged up a little bit. It could be a little bit of Genty not performing like everybody expects, but he's that deep threat and he's producing. He's making things happen.
I mean, he seems like a better option than Thornton or Besh at this point, but I'm with you.
Clearly, he's
still kind of a deep
Bowers is target. Yeah, if Bowers is target number 1 and Myers is target number 2, Tucker's target number 3 on that team right now. That being said, he could easily put it. What did he do week 1 or week 2? 4.9 points.
Yeah. Let's talk about the Commanders' backfield. Austin Eckler gone for the year. We knew they were going to involve McNichols and Chris Rodriguez. A lot of people still all on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, call him Bill. But he was actually the least desirable, seemingly, running back of the group. Only 26 yards rushing, does get a touchdown. None of them really involved in the passing game, which was interesting. But Jeremy McNichols had the most rushing yards, had a big 60-yard touchdown run. Chris Rodriguez actually got the most carries with 11. I feel like this backfield's a stay away for me until we can see a couple more weeks and get some clarity. But how are you feeling about him?
Yeah, it's so Bill actually led the running backs in snaps, played 23 snaps, 40%. Rodriguez was at 38%, and McNichols at 26%. McNichols was buoyed by the 60-yard run. Did you happen to catch that?
Yeah, it was a nice run.
It was nice. They had him. It's like it wasn't like he
8 for 26 isn't that impressive for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, and
not at all.
He wasn't. He was terrible in week 2. He was
11 for 39 for Rodriguez isn't a whole lot better.
That's what I'm saying. None of them were really good. If McNichols hadn't gotten that big touchdown, it probably would have been kind of a dud all the way around.
And McNichols is supposed to be their passing down back, and he had 0 targets. So
Well,
Krosky,
they only had one target to a running back,
Yeah,
period, and
that
it
was
was
Bill.
yeah. So, but that may change if we go back to Jaden Daniels.
It's probably more of a stay away than what was the one game earlier you said?
I don't know if we haven't gotten the
But
back.
Yeah, it's definitely a backfield to avoid. It is one though. You might take a flyer if one of them is available and put on your bench at the end of your bench to see how does it shake out. What we do know is that Jeremy McNichols is a grinder. He's been in the league. I think he's in his 8th year now, and it's not like he's an overly talented running back. Chris Rodriguez looks a little quicker than he did when he came into the league. He lost some weight in the offseason, but they had no qualms about making him inactive and keeping Krosky Merritt active when Eckler was healthy. So they do. Do you remember CAP? What was his name? He played for Carolina several years.
Artist Payne.
Yeah, and he was a guy. He was a true handcuff in the sense that if the starting running back was there, Payne was going to be inactive because he only was going to get touches if the starter was out. So he would be inactive. Starter would be out for a week. Payne would go in and have 25 carries and put up a good game. But they just weren't going to use him. And it feels like that's what they did with Rodriguez here in Washington.
All right. Still quite a few games on the docket. The Jacksonville Jaguars got the 17-10 win over Houston. Houston now 0-3, only 38 points in 3 games. Are they in trouble?
Yes. It feels like they just can't get anything going offensively. 204 yards passing on 38 attempts, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. It's not happening. Now, the ball is going in the direction it should, i.e. Nico Collins, 8 for 11, 104 yards and a touchdown.
First decent game of the year.
Yeah. But Christian Kirk came back off of IR or being injured and had ended up second on the team with 8 targets, but he only converted 3 for 25. We've been lamenting the fact that Houston didn't put many resources into their offensive line all year or all offseason. And they actually seem to subtract a bunch from it and not really replace it with quality. But some of it too is on CJ Stroud not getting rid of the ball, not making the right reads. And they don't really have much of a running game. They all have nice yard per carries. Stroud 5.5, Marks 4.5, Chubb 4.2. But there's nobody on that list that makes a team feel threatened by their running. And while Mixon maybe didn't have the speed he once had, he was inefficient, but you knew you could give him the ball 25 times and he was going to get you 105 yards and probably a touchdown. I don't think you see that with Nick Chubb. They don't have the faith to give him that volume right now. Will we see Woody Marks continue to take over opportunities because he's got young legs, fresh legs, provide some explosiveness? Maybe. He's definitely worth seeing if you got room to stash him. But again, he didn't make his hay running the ball in college. He was a receiving back. That was the book on him when he came into the league this year. So I don't know. We'll have to see. It doesn't feel like the Texans are headed in the right direction.
The Jags may be 2-1, but their offense wasn't good either. This was kind of a horrendous offensive game. Trevor Lawrence only 50% completions on 40 attempts. They only had 86 yards rushing on 24 attempts. They managed to get enough to win. Brian Thomas Jr., his day ends up looking a lot better because he catches that kind of YOLO 46-yard bomb on the go-ahead drive. But before that, had 5 targets, only caught 1 for 9 yards. He continues to struggle. This Jacksonville offense not great either, right?
It's not. Travis Etienne is RB9, but he did slide a little in week 3. Bashal Tutin, RB36 on the week on the back of that 1 touchdown. He didn't catch his target. Neither him nor Etienne caught their only targets. Parker Washington, 11 targets, 4 for 34. That's not what you want to see. Brenton Strange, 6 for 7 for 61. I think you'll take that. But yeah, they've got to be able to figure out how to get it in the end zone. They have, when you have Travis Hunter and you spent the number 2 overall pick on him, and you're going to give him 2 targets and
I just don't think it's going to work if they've been upping his work on defense. And this was my concern going into the draft. We felt better after he got drafted before we did rookie drafts, because they said that he was going to be primarily a wide receiver, but he doesn't seem to be primarily a wide receiver. And I just don't think he can do both in the pros. I don't like this.
Yeah, he played 53%.
We've already seen Trevor Lawrence arguing with yet another coach. I'm thoroughly unimpressed by him. All the teammates throwing Brian Thomas under the bus, saying he's not a good teammate, not a good receiver, is kind of trash. I think the Jaguars are lucky they're 2-1. They have the smell of an 0-3 team. So,
well, Hunter played 53% of the offensive snaps and 68% of the defensive snaps. I don't feel like that's not a recipe for success with him.
Not for fantasy. Maybe it will be for them, but we'll see.
Barely for regular football.
Pittsburgh Steelers went to New England in what was another horrible game and anathema to offense, but got the 21-14 victory. Aaron Rodgers, just a stunning 139-yard passing day. But I want to talk to you about Kenneth Gainwell. They keep giving him touches. He got a red zone carry that led to a touchdown. He's getting targets. Do you have any low-end flex appeal for him?
He's a guy you put in your lineup and hope he gets in the end zone. He's a touchdown-dependent deep flex stash. What do you have? 4 carries and 1 target. Warren had 18 carries and 6 targets. If it wasn't for Gainwell getting the touchdown, we wouldn't be having the conversation.
Meanwhile, for the Patriots in their backfield, Travion Henderson, we like him, but he looked like the least explosive in what he was able to do with his touches. Meanwhile, Ramondre Stevenson, 2 horrendous fumbles. Antonio Gibson with a horrendous fumble. What are we doing with this Patriots backfield? I feel like this might be another stay away for the time being.
It's not one you can count on, because first off, if one of them has a good game, most people have probably started the other one, and we're nervous. We don't know what's going on.
I think it's charming you think any of them are going to have a good game.
I think, but we've seen them have good games. We just haven't seen them do it consistently. They're undergoing a culture shift in New England. And, Stevenson, you can't have the fumbles. The game would have, if he doesn't have those 2 fumbles, the game is, it's a different game. One of them's in the end zone, almost in the end zone when he fumbled. And, if that's a touchdown instead, or down at the 1 and Drake May sneaks it in or throws a fade to Hunter Henry or some shit, then it's a completely different story we're talking about. But they're going through the growing pains. Hunter Henry is the guy that you feel comfortable starting right now. He's got the chemistry with Drake May. I'm okay starting May as well. I think his running is helping out. What did he have? 45 yards rushing, 268 passing. I think it'll come around. They need the offensive line to be more consistent so that the running game can develop some consistency. And then you need to figure out, I mean, I guess if I think about it, Antonio Gibson had 7 carries. Would he have had that many carries if Stevenson hadn't fumbled?
Who
Probably not.
knows? It's Josh McDaniels. The Cincinnati Bengals went to Minnesota, and the Vikings just killed them 48-10. A lot of hype for Jake Browning. He looked pretty good leading the Bengals back to a victory over Jacksonville, who might actually suck. But he was not good on Sunday. 19 of 27, 140 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. I believe he also lost a fumble. Is it time to be a little concerned about the Bengals with Browning for this foreseeable future?
I think you worry about any quarterback behind that offensive line. It just Chase Brown, 10
We need to
carries.
see the Bengals and Houston play each other, and the winner, the loser, is the one that has the 32nd ranked offensive line.
It's they're just in a bad spot. I get it. You want the shiny new car. They're the most ghetto fabulous team in the NFL. They've got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Joe Burrow, and they live in a dumpster. So
But without Joe Burrow, I just don't know how they're made. Joe Burrow made it work and kept them alive without either Chase or Higgins over the years. But I don't how Joe Burrow survived behind that. They have 0 running game too. I mean, Chase Brown, 10 carries. For 3
one
yards.
thing I would point out is that while Jake Browning, it looks bad for him, 19-27 for 140, and he did throw the 2 interceptions. He didn't fumble the ball 3 times. If you don't have those turnovers, then maybe you don't get down so bad. It changes the tenor of the game. Ultimately, the Bengals don't have a very good defense, and they don't have a very good offensive line. It was an asinine way to build a team, and without an elite quarterback right now, it's tough to, really. I don't think you can, in good conscience, sit Jamar Chase, but you're not happy about the results you're going to get week to week.
You might think about putting Higgins, whether or not he's really a starting option. For the Vikings, it was the first game for Jordan Mason leading the backfield with Aaron Jones now on IR. 16 carries, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was the Bengals defense, so we'll take it with a grain of salt. But are you encouraged by him in this role?
Yeah, San Francisco liked him, but they liked the draft capital better because they felt like they were deep enough at the position they could afford to give him up. He's decently athletic, had a 7.11 relative athletic score over at MathBomb's relative athletic score site. But he doesn't have a lot of wiggle to his game. He scored fairly low in like the 3-cone and the short shuttle. But he's a good running back. He hits the hole. We see it in San Francisco with their offense. We see it in Miami, in LA with the Rams, in Minnesota with O'Connell. They want their running back to go where they're supposed to. The offensive line is going to make a hole. You're going to go where we told you the hole was going to be. And most times it's going to work out positively. And that's what Jordan Mason did. He didn't do anything in the passing game. Cam Akers had 1 target. Z Scott, that was some other running back I'd never heard of. Xavier
Scott. Yeah, he's their backup now. So
so one catch for 20 yards, but no, Mason's going to get me 100 yards and 2 touchdowns every week. I'm so down.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosted the New York Jets. The Jets blocked a field goal, nearly completed a comeback, but the Buccaneers hold on for the 29-27 victory. Dennis, I want to talk about Breece Hall. 19 carries for 107 yards in week 1. Turns out the Steelers defense not very good. Since then, 19 carries for only 50 yards in the 2 games since. He's not getting a ton of volume as a receiver for yardage. Still no touchdowns. Is it time to start being a little concerned if you have him as your RB2?
I think there's going to be some inconsistency in the game with that offense under Justin Fields. We saw with Tyrod Taylor historically, he's not a guy that's going to go downfield a lot. Garrett Wilson had 10 catches, but he only had 84 yards. Taylor threw the ball 36 times, but he didn't break 200 yards. He did put up 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 48 yards, which is good. So Taylor actually had a decent game fantasy-wise. What was he? QB9 this week. And so you'll take that. That's the kind of game we see from Justin Fields fairly regularly. He will go and, his running will help propel him to positive fantasy days, and he can win some games too. Brees had 6 targets, caught 4 of them. So he had 15 touches, 15 opportunities. Braylon Allen, 2 targets.
He barely got 50 yards.
6 carries. I think that's a function of the entire offense, though, not necessarily Brees Hall. And
I just don't think that they see him as a workhorse back or something they're going to feature in this offense, which would align with their comments about, it's a contract year and they're happy with having a 3-headed backfield.
Yeah, they want to get the most they can out of him this year while also preparing for next year and the expectation that they're not going to try to re-sign him. So, when they have a chance to put in Allen or Davis, they're going to do it.
Let's talk about somebody near and dear to your heart, and that is Sterling Shepard. He caught 4 for 80 this week. Mike Evans likely out a couple weeks with a high ankle sprain. Chris Godwin may be able to play, but he is coming back from a major injury. Shepard, 11 receptions for 153 yards already through 3 games. Do you like him to pick up the slack?
Yeah, I think it actually will be a little bit of a boost for either Rachaad White or Cade Otton until we see how healthy Godwin is. I feel like Godwin's probably not back this week. So that means it's going to be Abuka and Shepard. That's wheels up for the 2 of them. You want a narrow funnel, but we've seen them throw the ball a bunch to their running backs in the past. We've seen the Buccaneers, when they were way down on receivers and stuff, throw the ball a bunch to Cade Otton. So they like Otton. He didn't get any targets this week, so I'm not sure if maybe he was out.
No, he was out there.
They like Tez Johnson. He was active for the first time. Ryan Miller is a journeyman of journeymen, so I don't think he's real much of a threat. But yeah, I would be okay, especially if Godwin doesn't play this week. I'm going to be okay flexing Sterling Shepard.
It's weird for
Baker
to be perhaps the healthiest receiver on his team. I don't think that's been the case in his entire career.
Yeah, that you are correct, sir. But Baker's going to throw the ball to the open guy unless he's trying to get Mike Evans 1,000 yards, in which case he's going to only throw it to Evans.
On to the afternoon games. The Saints went to Seattle. It wasn't much of a game. The Seahawks winning 44-13. Spencer Rattler hasn't looked bad. I don't think the 0-3 start is on him. They did put in Shook for a couple plays at the end. Do you think we're getting closer to them giving Shook a look?
Nice rhyme. I think, it's the challenge really is that Rattler's not playing awful, but he's not really elevating the team. But at some point, we have to accept that they've got to be in a full-blown rebuild at some point, but yet they went and didn't move Alvin Kamara when, by and large, we thought they should have. They should have been tearing it down. They should have been trying to, get draft picks, young assets, and shed salary cap, and they just haven't done that. Jawan Johnson's having a great year. Olave's getting volume, but he's not getting a lot of high-end production out of it. Kamara's getting volume, but not getting a lot of high-end production. So if they go to 0-4, I think we see him make a change just to see if Shook can give them a boost. But I think it leads to quarterback roulette the rest of the season. I don't know that Shook is going to be that much better than Rattler.
Meanwhile, for Seattle, Torrey Horton, the rookie who's kind of in there, their slot receiver, didn't do anything in week 1, but he's gotten 4 targets and he caught a touchdown in each of the last 2 games, also returned a touchdown this week. How do you feel about him?
Somebody's got to be the number 2. And while we thought it's Cooper Kupp, and it probably really is at this point, Horton's quickly catching up to him. Kupp he's old by football standards, and he's had an injury plague past. It's JSN, and then you end up with Elijah Arroyo and AJ Barner at the tight end position. The plus side, they're not throwing the ball a ton. They've got Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, and George Halani looked decent in the offseason. They weren't very efficient against the Saints in the running game. But, they didn't have to be.
No. The Denver Broncos went to Los Angeles, and the Chargers got the 23-20 victory. They moved to 3-0 in the division. During the week, Sean Payton said they were really going to bulk up the workload for RJ Harvey and give him a future role in the backfield. That amounted to 2 carries and 3 targets, while J.K. Dobbins got 11 carries and 2 targets. I think RJ Harvey is a guy you stick on the bench until further notice. Do you feel any different?
No, Dobbins is playing great. If you roster Harvey, you're going to hold on to him because, how much faith, how much faith do you have that Dobbins is going to hold up?
Other than one drive, Dobbins looked like shit. So I just don't have any faith in Sean Payton, and I also don't have any faith in Bo Nix, who can't throw the fucking ball. But
he can throw to Cortland Sutton, at least this week.
Meanwhile, for the Los Angeles Chargers, Najee Harris, torn Achilles, gone for the season. That'll be a big uptick for Omarion Hampton. But I want to talk about Harris for a minute. He was a journeyman, now signed a 1-year kind of prove-it contract for the Chargers. We never thought he was a future there, but now with this Achilles injury, I think he becomes a grim hold in Dynasty.
I don't even know if he's a grim hold. He was a player that was, while durable for the first 4 years of his career and able to handle a ton of volume, was not very efficient, but he wasn't going to make mistakes. He didn't fumble. He could catch the ball, though they didn't use him in that role a lot. He just didn't have any explosion. He was he was a non-explosive Derrick Henry type of back. And then this offseason, when he signed with the Chargers, it kind of felt like a really, really good signing until they drafted Omarion Hampton. And then it was like, oh, that doesn't bode well. And then he blew himself up in the eye with a firework, and that didn't go great. But it looked like he was going to have a role, a 60.
He looked like the better running back when they were in there the last 2 weeks. He was more efficient with carries. I thought that was kind of a bummer for him.
Yeah, and the reality of the situation is that he plays a position that's extremely devalued. Yeah. Could he have been a reasonable flex this year? Maybe, depending on how much they ran. But Hampton was the guy that was going to provide some explosiveness. If Herbert's throwing the ball 47 times a game, that doesn't bode well for the running game. But they had a lot of plays this week. So 47 and then 28 rush attempts. So they ran a lot of plays despite only putting up 23 yards. I'm curious, so Quinshon Judkins, went to Tijuana and got a hand transplant in the offseason, and now all of a sudden he's good.
Not Quinton Judkins, you mean Quentin Johnston?
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, I know. He looks. Maybe they just. Maybe you're right though. They just needed a coach that knew how to use him. 3 games left. The Cowboys went to Chicago, and I don't know why I ever picked.
Did they?
I don't know why I ever picked the Cowboys. They lost 31-14. CeeDee Lamb, high ankle sprain. Right after the game, he said he was hopeful to play this week, but now they're talking about 4 to 6 weeks. What does Dallas look like without CeeDee Lamb?
Well, they look smart for going and getting George Pickens. However,
although Dak only had eyes for Jake Ferguson, so what does it matter?
Well, the issue is going to be, will Pickens, Pickens had 9 targets to Perkins 14, Pickens had 9 to Ferguson's 14. It was just Ferguson caught 13. Well, Pickens only caught 5, which makes sense given the degree of difficulty as to where they're getting their targets. So Pickens will need to convert better than 5 and 9 for 68 and a touchdown. It may bode well for my early offseason shares of Jalen Tolbert, who has been fighting that wide receiver 3 spot with Kevontae Turpin. Tolbert had 6 targets for 3 catches, only 24 yards. Ryan Flournoy getting a bunch of targets didn't help. But no, I think it'll be the passing game has the parts to still continue to be good versus being great with CeeDee Lamb. I hope Lamb gets healthy, but I will say, sitting in the Roundtable Dynasty League the Roundtable Redraft League, losing Mike Evans and CeeDee Lamb in the same week is not terrific.
No. Meanwhile, the Bears actually remember that Luther Burden was on their roster. Ran a trick play for him. He had a couple of deep passes, 3 for 101 and a touchdown. Is this a coming out party, or is this just the Dallas defense?
I think it's the Dallas defense. He only had 3 targets. He did, and he made them count. But he is still playing significantly fewer snaps than Olamide Zaccheaus. So until he overtakes Zaccheaus for that wide receiver 3 role, I'm playing him as a desperation flex in hopes that he has a game like this, a la Jameson Williams, that's what this was a Jameson Williams game, is what Burden had here.
Yeah. One of the other not so fun games to watch was the Cardinals at the 49ers. The 49ers getting a walk-off 16-15 victory. For the Cardinals, James Conner, I think he broke his ankle, dislocated his ankle. He is out for the rest of the year, I believe they said. So wheels up for Trey Benson. How are you feeling about him moving forward?
We've been waiting, and we keep hearing from the Cardinals players how great Trey Benson is. So we just need to see it come to fruition. Hopefully they don't misuse him the way they misuse Marvin Harrison. Harrison's been getting Kyler Murray. He's wide receiver 43 on the year. But I don't blame it all on Murray, because it's the coaches calling the plays, and they're not using Harrison the right way. But if Murray's going to throw for 159 yards on 35 attempts, pretty much all of your receivers become touchdown dependent, and he doesn't throw a ton of touchdowns.
Yeah. Meanwhile, 49ers, they managed to win again. Another massive injury. Nick Bosa now out for the year. They're putting it together with sticks and spit on offense, but managing to make it work. How do you feel about the 49ers? A kind of quiet 3-0.
Christian McCaffrey is sitting at RB2 on the year, and
suddenly the healthiest 49er.
But doesn't that make you nervous? Like if I roster McCaffrey,
I said that kind of like the same way we Sterling Shepard being the healthiest wide receiver on the Buccaneers. That doesn't bode well.
And then he had 32 opportunities last week, which for a guy who battled in a strained Achilles, basically it sounded like all last season was like, if he steps just wrong, that thing is going to rupture. And so they just, it was crazy.
It hasn't stopped him from giving him like 30 touches a game again.
I agree, which makes me nervous, real nervous. It's, they've got Pearsall. Hopefully they get Kittle back here. And they got 3 more weeks without Kittle. I don't know if we ever see Brandon Ayuk again.
I think you'd only have to have 2 more games without Kittle because you only have to be on for 4 games. He went on after week 1. That was week 3. So he'd definitely be out week 4 and 5. Demarcus Robinson comes back from his alcohol suspension. No one's can be sure. Juwan Jennings, they listed like 4 broken body parts on him. So I don't know how that suddenly happened. But Kendrick Bourne looks like he picked up where he left off when he left them. And, they should get Brock Purdy back. He was nearly able to go in week 3. It just they should be glad they got Robert Saleh back.
What do you think if you're the 49ers, do you try to flip Mac Jones?
No.
No, just keep holding him?
Given the injury luck they have, they need 2 or 3 quarterbacks now. I would not. Sunday Night Football happened. I mean, that's the most charitable way I can describe that crap show. Chiefs end up with a 22-9 victory, but it's not as exciting as it sounds. Tyquan Thornton, a couple of deep balls again, 5 for 71 and a touchdown. He was a trendy pickup. He seems to be doing good, but my question is, do you think he even has much of a role in the offense when Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice are back?
So I feel like by week 8, he's earning the targets now. He's putting in the work. He's making stuff happen with him. He's making difficult catches. I got to be honest. I'm watching Tyquan Thornton play in Kansas City, and I'm like, what the hell, New England? You had a good player.
You should have heard Bill Simmons on his podcast talking about watching the Chiefs roll out 2 starting wide receivers in Thornton and Juju Smith-Schuster that were cut because they weren't good enough to play in New England, who fundamentally doesn't have receivers.
It's crazy. So I think he's earning targets, but I think when Rice and Worthy are fully up to speed, they're beyond their health issues, beyond their suspension issues, they're in football shape. I think that Thornton is fighting with Hollywood Brown for the wide receiver 3 targets. And Patrick Mahomes throws to the open guy. So then it ends up being wide receiver whack-a-mole. I do think that it'll be Rice and then Worthy and then Thornton or Brown in that order when they're all good to go. But any given week, any one of them could be the guy that catches 9 for 150 and a touchdown or 2. And
I just feel like Thornton's going to go back to being what you thought he was at the beginning, which is the new MVS.
Right. Well, but that's kind of Worthy's skill set too.
But Worthy feels like he's going to be a starter and have more opportunity for targets. I think Thornton's going to be like 1, maybe 2 YOLO balls a game. When they have Rice and Worthy back with Hollywood Brown, that's what would make me nervous. I saw some people in some of my leagues like spending $70 fab dollars to get Tyquan Thornton. I hope you enjoy the 2 weeks that's going to pay off for you. And I'm not saying he didn't look good last night, but he and Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not spending a ton of fab on them because I think come Halloween they're going to turn back into pumpkins.
I'm kind of on board with you there.
For the Giants, Russell Wilson looked horrible. He has now been benched for Jackson Dart. We'll talk about Dart more on Thursday when we preview the upcoming game. But I want to ask you about the backfield. Tyrone Tracy Jr. injured, going to miss a few weeks, but he was already pretty well ceding it over to Cam Scadaboo. Anyway, Scadaboo 60 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries, 6 receptions for 61 yards on 8 targets. He looked phenomenal. Is it going to be wheels up for him?
Yeah, I don't think Devin Singletary is going to be much more than a change of pace back. But here's my concern. Is Scadaboo the next Isaiah Pacheco? Whenever he has a chance to run into somebody, he does. And
Pacheco was never much of a receiver, and Scadaboo has been consistently catching passes the last 3 weeks.
Correct. And then he looks for somebody to run into, which to me feels like just a recipe for injury.
Maybe he's Mike Allstott and not.
He's solidly built. He is, but it just feels like a hashtag 2 to 3 year window guy that if I can get through this year with him, I'm looking to move him because I don't think he's going to be a long-term guy.
I'm not saying I'm trading Scadaboo for Jahmyr Gibbs. I liked what I saw. He was the only watchable part of the Giants offense on Sunday night, which is really saying something. And I'm kind of excited to see what he can do. You know, we'll talk more about Jackson Dart, but about halfway through the second quarter, I was thinking to myself, I should not have legally been allowed to watch Cowboys Giants last week because I slurped the Kool-Aid of two teams that suck so bad. And going into this week there, I was like, oh, the Cowboys, their offense looked immaculate. I'm certainly picking them as road underdogs in Chicago. Oh, the Giants, they're huge home underdogs. They're certainly going to hip check the Kansas City Chiefs. And, with cue the Joe Bluth, I've made a horrible mistake.
Yeah. Now, I like Scadaboo, and I think he's going to be fine. They were the big improvement in New York was Andrew Thomas being back at left tackle.
Yeah.
So once he gets off his snap count and he's out there every single snap and he stays healthy, then that makes that's a monstrous improvement.
I said, let's not say when. Let's say
just
if.
Went silent again.
Because it's been a tough road for Andrew Thomas, to try to stay healthy and to try to stay in there. I hope that he's out there. It certainly benefited the Giants to have him out there, but I wouldn't say when Andrew Thomas is healthy every snap. I would say if. So.
Well, I missed most of what you said there. So,
well, just you said when Andrew Thomas is healthy and out there every week, and I said let's say if, because that hasn't been the case for his run with New York.
Yeah,
although
he looked good last night though, or Sunday night.
A part of me wonders that there's a lot of talk about making this move to Jackson Dart, as you and I talked about, going into kind of a horrendous stretch of the Giants' schedule. I'm wondering if the ownership leaned on him after watching that turd on Sunday night. It was like, we got to do something else, because I don't know if they're setting him up for success. The Chargers' offense and defense has looked good. That is not an easy home game, and then I believe they have some hideous road games.
I think they've got the Saints, and then they've got in the next 4 weeks Philadelphia twice.
But the Saints actually haven't been terrible, so that's not as easy. But yeah, you're right. Then home for the Eagles, at the Broncos, at the Eagles, home for the 49ers. That may not be what you're looking for.
The plus side, Nick Bosa is out for the rest of the year, the torn ACL.
I suppose that, but you're right. Can Andrew Thomas stay in there? I don't know. The question is Brian Daboll their coach when we get to November? Because it's not a lock they beat the Saints. And that is the most winnable game, I think, between now and November 9th when they're at the Bears.
Mm-hmm.
So 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. If you were 0-9, I don't know if your coach survives that. There's some, it looked like after week 1, Mike McDaniel was way out in the lead, on the hot seat race, and the last couple of weeks he's been like, slow your roll, come back to the pack, guys, and he has invited Brian Callahan and Brian Dable back into the tent, and I think Kellen Moore's okay because we all thought the Saints were going to be bad. He inherited a real dumpster fire, and they've actually looked a little bit better. Dave Canales had me a little nervous through 1.5 games, but I thought the second half against the Cardinals and the way they dominated the Falcons was encouraging. So, but there are some grim times out there. There are 2 games this week where 3 teams are playing each other, and one of them's Monday Night Football. You're welcome, America.
Yeah.
That'll do it for the week 3 recap. We'll be back on Thursday talking about week 4, Seahawks and the Cardinals playing on the short week. So that'll be fun. Another Monday night doubleheader. And we have our first international game. So 4 football windows on Sunday. Start pre-warning the spouse, maybe do something a little extra nice for them on Wednesday, Thursday, maybe take them out to dinner Saturday night, because you're not going to see them on Sunday. Football from 9:30 a.m. Eastern until 1:30 a.m. Eastern. So it's happening. Dennis, if people are looking to fill up that Wednesday while they plan the most epic date night in the history of time, what can they do?
They can do what we do. Go to your favorite podcast platform, hit that search bar, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a subscribe. Hey, I am 32-16 in the money line after 3 games. Go back and listen. We'll make some picks next week too.
I did so bad. I was cruising along, and then I was 5-11 against the spread and 6-10 overall. I picked a lot of upsets, and there were a lot of upsets, but I picked the wrong upsets. So let's hope next week does a little bit better. That'll do it for us tonight. We will be back with you on Thursday with a full week 4 preview. Until then, have a wonderful week.